The haunting passenger. The empty road stretched endlessly into the abyss of the night, illuminated only by the weak glow of my sedan's headlights. I had been driving for hours, cutting through the desolate countryside, looking for a place to pull over and rest. The fuel gauge hovered just above empty, and my body ached from exhaustion. I finally found a small clearing beside the road, a patch of dirt and gravel large enough to park my car. The forest surrounded me on both sides, its dense trees forming a wall of darkness. There were no streetlights, no passing cars, and no sounds except for the soft hum of crickets in the distance. Locking my doors, I adjusted my seat, wrapped my jacket around myself, and closed my eyes. Sleep came in fragments, light and uneasy. Every few minutes, I stirred, adjusting my position, trying to ignore the feeling of unease creeping up my spine. Then, the knocking started. A soft tap, then another. It came from the driver's side window. My heart clenched. My fingers dug into the fabric of my jacket. I kept my eyes closed, my breath shallow, convinced it was just my imagination. But the knocking continued, insistent and deliberate. A shiver ran down my spine. I told myself it had to be a tree branch or an animal. Slowly, I opened my eyes and turned my head, dreading what I might see. Nothing. The window was empty. The darkness beyond it was impenetrable. I exhaled shakily, convincing myself that exhaustion was playing tricks on me. Just as I turned to face forward again, I froze. Something was sitting on my hood. A woman. Her long, tangled hair draped over her face, obscuring her features. She wore a thin white dress, barely visible under the dim moonlight. Her body was unnaturally still, her limbs contorted at odd angles. My breath hitched as she slowly lifted her head, revealing wide, hollow eyes and a mouth twisted into a manic grin. I didn't think. I turned the key in the ignition, my hands trembling so badly I almost missed. The engine roared to life. The woman didn't move. She just sat there, staring at me, her smile growing wider, stretching beyond what seemed humanly possible. I slammed the gas pedal. The car lurched forward, and for a brief moment, I saw her hands gripping the hood. Then she was gone. I didn't look back. I drove for miles, refusing to pull over. Every shadow on the road sent panic lancing through my chest. My pulse never slowed. The radio crackled with static, the white noise filling the cabin, but I didn't dare turn it off. Eventually, I reached a gas station, a lone, dimly lit beacon in the middle of nowhere. I pulled in, my entire body shaking, and ran inside. The attendant, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, looked up as I stumbled to the counter. "You all right?" he asked. I hesitated. How could I explain what I had just seen? I forced a nod and mumbled something about needing gas. My hands fumbled with my wallet, but before I could speak again, he frowned and pointed toward my car. Your friend's still in there. A cold, suffocating silence settled over me. I turned, my breath caught in my throat. Through the gas station window, I could see my car parked beneath the flickering neon lights. And there she was, sitting in the passenger seat, staring at me with that same unnatural grin. My world shattered, and the knocking started again. I ran. I don't know why. I had nowhere to go. The gas station door slammed shut behind me, and I stumbled into one of the aisles, gripping the metal shelf to keep myself steady. My chest heaved as I tried to force air into my lungs, my mind reeling. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. The attendant stared at me like I had lost my mind. "Hey man, you okay?" I didn't answer. I turned back toward the window. She was still there. Her pale hands rested on her lap, her head tilted slightly, as if she were amused by my reaction. Then she moved. Slowly, ever so slowly, her fingers lifted and tapped against the passenger side window. I grabbed the attendant's arm. "Call the police," I whispered. His brows furrowed, and he gave me a strange look. "For what?" "The woman in my car." He peered out the window. His face paled. "Shit." I felt a wave of relief that he could see her too, that I wasn't just hallucinating. But the relief was short-lived. The lights in the gas station flickered. The radio behind the counter hissed with static. The attendant took a step back. She looks like. The bulbs above us popped. The store plunged into darkness. A deep, guttural laugh echoed through the station, curling around me like smoke. I could barely see, but I felt her presence, felt the weight of her eyes. And then, the knocking started again. This time, it wasn't coming from my car. It was coming from inside the store. My breath hitched. The attendant fumbled for a flashlight, his hand shaking so badly he nearly dropped it. A weak beam of light cut through the darkness, illuminating the empty aisles. The knocking continued. Closer now, right behind us. I turned slowly. A figure stood in the shadows, just beyond the flashlight's reach. The same long, tangled hair, the same grin, but her head was upside down, twisted in a way no humans should be. I staggered backward. This isn't real. The laugh came again, low and mocking. The attendant screamed. The last thing I saw before everything went black was her face inches from mine, her lips parting to whisper a single word: "Drive." I woke up behind the wheel. The gas station was gone. The road stretched before me, endless and empty. The dashboard clock read 3:17 a.m. My hands were locked around the steering wheel, my knuckles white. Had I imagined it? Had I fallen asleep while driving? Then I felt it, a presence beside me. My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. The woman sat in the passenger seat, her face inches from mine. her grin so wide it split her cheeks. Her eyes, black and endless, bore into me. And the knocking started again, inside my head. The road stretched on forever. I could never escape. The last thing I remember before darkness swallowed me whole was the sound of my own screams mixing with hers. Two voices merging into one, lost in the endless void of the night.